sources of self-efficacy for speaking English foreign language. I'm going to try and go through the methodology and everything as quickly as I can so that I can share the results and give you some of the conclusions and recommendations that I have. So let me begin by just giving you a little bit of a background. So I teach general English at a university in Japan. We don't have an English faculty, but the university does have policy for raising students' speaking fluency. So when I was talking to my students, a lot of students say that they really want to be able to speak English well, but they don't have confidence to do that. They don't feel they have the ability to reach that level. So I really wanted to know why, how can they want to do something but not feel that they can? So that was the stimulus for my research. Looking at the wider research context, we know that Japan has these policies or has had policies in the past to raise the English speaking level of students. And we know that English functions as a stimulus to participate in global education and employment opportunities. We know it's something we want for our students to have. But against this background, we can also see here at the bottom of this slide that the fluency level of Japanese people is actually decreasing. I think Japan has one of the lowest speaking English levels in Asia. This one here is from 2016 there, but it is continuing, right? The newest ones are also, the levels are decreasing, unfortunately. Some Japan-based research gives us some background, some clues as to why this low speaking fluency is occurring. So we know that generally Japanese people have a low willingness to communicate. And this is often the reasons are put for things that are happening in junior and senior high school. Things like the focus on the examination skills. We know that students' motivation decreases over time as they go through the levels at junior, senior high school. It's often, as I said, on the attributed to the focus on the examination skills and also on the kind of passive learning that can happen at junior and senior high school. And all of these things are contributing to low speaking fluency. I want to make clear here that I used to work as an ALT at junior and senior high school for about 10 years. So I know that teachers are amazing at junior and senior high school. I know they're under an enormous amount of pressure to get students ready for these university entrance exams. And I also know that they really want to have more time to develop the communication skills of their students, but that they're under enormous pressure. And I know there are amazing teachers out there who are managing to balance these somehow. So this research isn't meant as a criticism of what's happening at junior and senior high school. It's meant for a way to help university teachers like me so that we can understand more about where our students are at when they come into university so that we can make some changes in our teaching to help them. I just wanted to make that clear that I'm not criticizing teachers. So looking at this, I got really interested in self-efficacy and I decided to look at this lack of confidence through self-efficacy. I want to make clear that self-efficacy is not a theory itself, of course. It's part of Banduro's social cognitive theory. And we can see here that social cognitive theory is a theory of human agency. It's of people's power or their belief in their power to influence their own actions. And self-efficacy is one part of that. So we can see Zimmerman's definition of self-efficacy here as the confidence a person feels in their ability to perform a specific task. And it's really important to remember that it is a specific task, is very, very domain specific. So you can have high self-efficacy in one area. For example, studying math, you can feel that you can really do math, you feel able to do that. And you can have low self-efficacy in other areas. For example, English. You could feel that you're not capable of learning English. Multiple studies have shown us that self-efficacy is a really powerful indicator of success in educational contexts. The study after study is finding that self-efficacy is a really good predictor of success. Some studies even tell us that it can be more than actual ability. Okay, so it was really relevant for my study to look at this through self-efficacy. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So self-efficacy is formed from 4 different sources. So these are called sources. They are different experiences, but in the presentation, I'm going to be referring to sources, okay? So the first source here is mastery. And if we're thinking of this from the perspective of speaking English, this would be students' past experiences of successfully speaking and communicating English. Looking next to it, we have social modeling. And this would be watching similar others. So watching Japanese people speaking English successfully, watching your teachers, watching your classmates speaking. Looking at the bottom, we have social persuasion. This is what significant others have told students about their speaking ability. So what teachers and other students and family members have told them. And the last one there that in the orange box is physiological states. So this is our feelings and emotions about speaking English, or rather how we interpret our feelings about speaking English, or students, I should say. So perhaps students may feel a little excitement, the kind of the heart rate going up, and it is how they interpret that. So they may interpret that as nervousness, not being good at English, or they may interpret it as excitement, that they're looking forward to it. So we have these 4 sources that come together that build self-efficacy. And for my study, it was very exploratory because there hasn't been a whole lot of research into self-efficacy in speaking English foreign language. I took an exploratory approach. So I was looking at the sources of self-efficacy. I wanted to know what kind of these experiences students had been having at junior and senior high school, so that then as they come into university, I can maybe supplement what is lacking or reinforce things that are always already there. So in self-efficacy research, there's two different things that are measured. One is current self-efficacy level, which is your confidence to do something. So that would be, for speaking English, it would be how confident do you feel you can introduce yourself in English? And students would rate that on a scale from 1 to 100. Or how confident do you feel you can talk about Japanese foreign policy in English, rank it from 1 to 100. That is the current self-efficacy levels. So I wasn't measuring that. I was measuring these sources here, what kind of experiences they have had, what kind of self-efficacy formation experiences students have had. So it's important to make that clear because they sometimes get mixed up. So I had research questions that I looked at. So I wanted to know the kind of experiences students had had of their self-efficacy, their sources of self-efficacy experiences. My literature review also told me that goals and attitudes were also really important. So I wanted to find out a little bit about what goals and attitudes students had towards speaking English. And I also wanted to know if anything else was going on. So this was the qualitative stage. So I did semi-structured interviews. So the protocol was for those 4 sources and goals and attitudes. I had a sample pool of 352 students, and these were about 50-50, male, female. But when I did the questionnaire, the selection questionnaire, only 15 students were willing to be interviewed, and there was a gender imbalance here. So only 4 male students said that they were willing to be interviewed. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm a woman, maybe because they're naturally shy. I don't know. Of course, I didn't ask them, but that is maybe perhaps one limitation. Okay, and there's information about the students here. Of course, they chose aliases. They were all second year students, so 19 or 20. Their English level and self-efficacy level here is self-reported, so they may be under-reporting it. I'm not sure, but you can see what their A2, B1 level. I think the A1 student may have been being a little over-modest there. Okay. And I analyzed this with a hybrid analysis. So I had my a priori codes, my pre-existing codes from the sources of self-efficacy and goals and attitudes. And also, I also did an inductive analysis where I was coding for interesting things that students were saying and trying to find meaning there. Okay. So this is the coding map, and you may need to move the camera a little bit, the video feed a little bit to see all of it. So you can see that I got the 6 themes there. They are the a priori themes that were already there. You can see the sub-themes that I've put inside each theme. And at the end, the blue one, this is like the really interesting, unique finding of my study. I've called it desired L2 self. And this was made up of the communicative skills and the language abilities that students wanted to attain. You may have heard of the ideal L2 self. It sounds very similar, but I believe it's very different. What I have found, the ideal L2 self, which is part of Dornier's motivational self system. This also includes goals for using English abroad, for work, for study. It involves seeing yourself as a global international citizen. And my students that I spoke to just did not have that attitude at all. You can see there in the theme 5 for goals, they had quite vague goals for using English. They didn't want to go and study abroad long term. They were just interested in perhaps going on holiday. So it's different to ideal L2 self. Okay, so that's enough of me talking about the methodology and everything. I want to go on and tell you or share with you what the students actually said according to some of these sub-themes here. So let's see. Okay, so the first theme was mastery. So let's see what students were talking about their experiences of speaking English. So the first set I have here is in-school experiences. And a lot of students said they just had no memory of speaking English in their English classes. I'm not going to read these quotes out for you. I'll let you read that in your own time. So we can see, they didn't remember speaking English, or when they did, it was kind of passive activities that they were doing. So reading aloud from the textbook, or just standing up and saying something, answering a question. Okay, but that wasn't all of it. Students did have positive experiences as well in school. So we have 2 experiences here from Minami and Ryuichi. They had some not spontaneous speaking, but they do have input into what they are doing here. So you can see Minami is talking about a role play that she did, and Ryuichi is talking about a presentation that he did, and they were very positive and they enjoyed these. Students also had a lot of out of school experiences using English, typically in their part-time jobs or giving directions to foreign tourists. which they enjoyed. All of the students out of school speaking experiences were positive. And also at Eikai, I think about 3 or 4 students had gone to English conversation school, and they talked very positively about what was happening there. Okay, so let's have a look at students' social modeling, what they were talking about. So if you remember, this is opportunities for watching people similar to yourself speaking English. So the first sub-theme was friends. So some students had friends who spoke English well. And you can see Ellie here is talking about what a good influence it had on her. But other students were also kind of in awe of their friends if they could speak English. What Hanako is saying here was also typical. I think maybe over half of the students said that not many of their friends were speaking English at all. And this mix was similar with teachers. Some of the teachers, this was about half and half. I think half of the teachers were perhaps just doing the pronunciation examples and reading from the textbook to students. But we also had some amazing teachers like Minami's teacher here, who was using English as much as possible in the lesson, using it for procedural things like taking the register and just doing as much as possible in English. And Minami was really motivated by that. Okay, social persuasion. This is what people have told us about our ability. So teacher feedback, what teachers were saying was mainly feedback. It was not praise, it was constructive criticism. And friends' feedback tended to be about pronunciation, saying, oh, you sound really good. Okay, so I have about 7 minutes left. So I'm just going to speed up a little bit if you don't mind. Really important, well, not important, worrying thing was many students were saying they had had no feedback at all from anybody about their English speaking. So Shiori here, this is worrying, isn't it? She says, that's the point where I didn't like English. And Tomoki he was pretty negative about his English ability. And he said he'd never been told anything advantageous. Okay, so looking at how students felt about speaking English, positive feelings. Some students had slightly positive feelings, not so positive. As Ayaka here is talking, it's better to be chosen. Every single student talked that they were nervous, even students who had some positive feelings about speaking English, they all felt nervous, and often like a physical thing. They were shaking, they felt sick, they could feel the blood drain from their face. Let's just have a look at some of the goals that students had. If you remember, I said they were quite vague, quite weak goals. Students didn't really imagine using it in their job, and it was just the sense that if they have to, like if they get a phone call from a foreign person, I'll use it. The main thing students imagined was using it for hobbies, understanding music lyrics, understanding movies, perhaps when they go on holiday abroad. And also helping foreign people. So not the sense of going abroad and using English, but using English perhaps with foreign tourists coming to Japan. Students wanted to help them. And their attitudes to English. Feelings towards English. So we had some mixed feelings towards English. Some students enjoyed it, but for a lot of students, it just was not important. And Aiko, this was typical. I want to work in Japan, so English isn't important. Perception of ability, not one student said that they were good or okay at English. They all said they were no good. Tomoki was perhaps the strongest here, saying he was rubbish. And every single student expressed a preference for speaking. They wanted to do more speaking activities and less grammar. Okay, desired L2 self. This is the one that I thought was kind of a unique finding. Students were talking about the communicative abilities and the language skills they wanted to develop. They all really wanted to get that sense of to convey meaning just to get their message across. And they also wanted to speak, fluently without having to think, without having to formulate what they want to say. And their skills was based on vocabulary. They wanted more choice of words. They wanted better pronunciation. And lots of the students, like Tomomi pointed out, that first they need to understand what's being said to them, and then they will be able to communicate. Okay, so from what students were telling me, I was able to form some recommendations for both my own teaching and for other university teachers. So the first one that came through loud and clear was that students are going to need a lot more practice for unrehearsed, spontaneous communication. So not doing scripted work. And also to try and use holistic assessment, focusing on can-do statements when we are assessing students will help that, because we no longer have to focus on those sort of discrete grammatical points. We can look at the whole thing of what they are doing. I also recommend limiting these high stress situations. Avoid whole class presentations. This was the main cause of those nervous, shaking, feeling sick experiences that students had. So we can just get students doing it in a small audience, doing it to groups. I recommend an active classroom, so there's no longer a front to the classroom. So students are looking all over the place. They're not just looking at one student. Again, this was loud and clear. Observe similar others. Students were not getting enough chances to see other Japanese people speak English properly. So if you are a native English speaker, you need to get more Japanese people who speak English into your class, using senior students, perhaps, getting other teachers, Japanese teachers who speak English to come into your class, getting people from the community to come in. If that's not possible, then perhaps using videos of Japanese sports stars speaking English, pop stars speaking English. It needs to be normalized. Japanese people speaking English needs to be normalized. They need to see more people like them speaking English. And the last recommendation is praise. If you remember, a lot of students said they had had no feedback about their speaking ability. So praise students more all the time and often. One of my expert checkers said that perhaps teachers do not praise because they do not want to make good students stand out. Well, the answer to that is, don't just praise the top students, praise all of them. There will always be something that you can praise students for. There is something good in everything that they do. So make sure that you praise them, make sure that other people in the class are praising each other as well. Okay, so I'm sorry if I raced through that. Thank you. My email is here if you want to email me to talk about anything. I have also put the QR code here for these slides. You should be able to access them and read those comments again. Okay, so thank you. And if you have any questions for me, I think we have not much time left, but thank you. Okay, I finished.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dawn Kobayashi, for your presentation. We are going to have to finish this session almost immediately, but we do have one question in the chat if you would like to address that.
Yes.
The question. So the question in the chat is, did you find anything about how specific their desire for their abilities are and whether that relates to their the SE? I get a lot of
no, their desires were kind of not specific, mainly for hobbies, mainly for sort of general things like that. Their desires were not for, I want to work for a global company, or I want to work for this company, I want to live abroad. There are no comments like that.
Okay, and thank you. I'm going to end the record. I would like you to open your mics, please, and thank Ms. Kobayashi for her presentation. If you would like to open your mics. And let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you would like to continue your discussions, I'm going to put a link in the chat, and that can take you to the to the SIG room where there'll be breakouts, or you can stay and enjoy a following presentation from the Mind and Brain Education SIG of JALT. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.